So here we are again in front of you with our another webinar. Before we move on to what our webinar is, let me introduce what AlCircle as a global aluminium platform is. So AlCircle is a global virtual aluminium ecosystem connecting the entire value chain from bauxite and alumina to primary metal, downstream products and recycling. The platform delivers industry news, price data, business leads, company directories, market intelligence tools that help stakeholders stay informed and connected. Under this ecosystem, we have three different platforms named as AlNews, AlBiz, and AlLearn. AlNews serves the latest industry news across the global custom reports and market intelligence, exclusive interviews and magazines, latest price details and industry events. AlBiz is the online B2B marketplace connecting the global aluminium buyers and sellers. It is basically the 360-degree marketing solution for aluminium globally to the customers. And AlLearn is our newest initiative, which is our world's largest online knowledge repository, which aims to empower the next generation of industry leaders while also serving as those who already are shaping the future of aluminium. Today's webinar is the Global Aluminium Industry Outlook 2026. We will walk you through the early signals shaping the global aluminium industry, linking microeconomics, supply chains, policy, energy, and sustainability to actionable market implications. Our speaker is Mr. Kamal Prakash, founder AlCircle. Along with that, in our panelists, we have our MRDI team, Mr. Rupankar Mujumdar, the research head, and Mr. Anand.
Yeah, nice.
So with this, I would like to hand over to Mr. Kamal Prakash to start with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prerna. Good day, everyone, because you are in different time zones. And I'm grateful to my colleagues Rupankar and Ayan for putting this presentation together. In fact, a lot has changed in terms of short-term outlook from the time this webinar was announced and my colleagues prepared this presentation due to the conflict in Middle East. But I think the long-term outlook still stays very firm as far as aluminium is concerned because of its inherent nature, being lightweight, good conductor of energy, easy formability, fully recyclable, and post-production through its application, it helps in energy transition and CO2 in terms of energy and CO2 reduction. Hence, in true sense, it stands out as the main energy transition base metal. I would now walk you through the presentation which my colleagues have prepared for me. Let me know if the screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think we all know that why the outlook matters, because aluminium is a strategic metal by almost every developed and developing economy because of its application. And I think this outlook would not only help directly who are involved into the aluminium industry, because there's something which I think we all need to understand that the aluminium ecosystem represents over 1% of the global GDP. So it is very important industry as a whole. And that is why it is of interest. It is of a lot of interest for every sector of the industry. And today, I think it is being attended not only by the producers, processors, policymakers, investors, but even a lot of vendors, or consumers who are connected to the industry. I would like to first walk you through the factors which are impacting our ecosystem, uh, which is primarily the economy, and and as we have seen that the when the growth in the aluminium consumption is connected with the growth in the economy. But the good thing is that when we look at the historical data, aluminium growth has been higher than the growth, the global GDP growth. And that is where it shows the importance of this metal. And and we all know that when the economy grows, there is more construction, there is more consumption, consumer consumption, uh, and there is all kinds of spending. And most importantly, today the energy transition which is happening, whether we look at EV or whether we look at microgrids or we look at renewable power, uh, everywhere aluminium's application is growing. So economic growth plays a very important role. Even we have seen that the aluminium growth, consumption growth is something, anything depending on the country you are in, is between 1.5 to 2 times of the GDP growth of a country. That is how the consumption of the aluminium is growing. And also we have also experienced that empirically, the aluminium is one metal which reacts pretty fast to the economic movement. Its demand, supply, and the pricing movements are rather faster compared to many other base metals. Uh, so it has its own unique features. Only thing that when we look at the availability, the aluminum availability cannot be, whether you look at primary or secondary. Uh, I think we have to follow a certain predictable nature that because of it is high energy intensity or the availability of scrap or recycling capacity, you cannot increase or decrease, particularly increase the capacity so quickly. So that is to be, we need to be mindful, and that is why this is being considered as a strategic metal by most of the economies. Uh, when we look at the, sorry, uh, so here we look at how the global aluminum consumption has grown in the past. And as I was mentioning to you, despite lower global economic growth, you would see that aluminum consumption grew from 2024 from 1.6 million ton to 104.9 million ton in 2025. And despite today the geopolitical disturbance, at L Circle, we are still pretty confident that this year the consumption will grow to 106.8 million tons. And uh, and uh, and this is this would also be kind of uh, visible from the and when we look at the chart here in terms of the global per capita consumption, while you would see that the per capita consumption is higher depending on the per capita income of the country. As we can see, Germany is 35 kg uh, per capita consumption as against India's 3.9. And I think one thing which we all can imagine, that suppose the world average is about 12.5, what happens that maybe 20, 30, 40 years down the road, even, the we can reach at that level, yeah, when I think the global population will be close to about 10 billion. You can imagine the kind of aluminium requirement will be there, considering all the different applications of the aluminium and the way aluminium is also being substituting, whether we talk of steel or copper or plastic, the main material which are today in use. We don't talk about concrete. Uh, Now, you see, of course, we talk of the Middle East conflict. Situation is changing by hour. In fact, in the last 2, 3 days, I think we have been changing these slides every day 2, 3 times. So even what I'm speaking may not be correct when in the next hour. So, of course, the energy market shock we have all seen today. So, almost about 20% of the global oil uh, passes through Hormuz, Strait, and I think that is a big question mark when the transportation through the strait will get normalized. And we are also aware of the fact that some of the Middle Eastern producers have uh, consequently asked for or have announced for force majeure or production cuts or shutdown. So, I think this is going to have a huge repercussion. I'm based in India. We could also start hearing in the last 4 or 5 days how the situation of the uh, LPG or CNG which we use, how it is changing. So this is I think this is impacting everyday life. Let us hope that it gets sorted out soon. Again, here, I think, as I was mentioning to you, that how situation is changing. While my colleague have quoted the IMF chief here on the 9th of March, today's situation is even quite different. The oil has breached more than $100 per barrel. So this is where we are. Uh, So as we mentioned that at L Circle is a global aluminium ecosystem, virtual ecosystem, and we will, I think, when we talk of the aluminium ecosystem, we'll start from bauxite and we will take you through right up to the recycled metal. So that because they are all interconnected, so you will be able to see the interplay where we are in the respective, I would say, building blocks of the ecosystem, and how we see going forward, uh, uh, what is the outlook for them. So starting with the bauxite, because still when we look at the global aluminium production, even if we talk of 104 million tons, almost 72, 73 million tons will be primary, which is primarily dependent on bauxite, alumina, energy. And the other 31, 32 million tons will be secondary, which will come later. So, in terms of global bauxite production, here you can see that this has been constantly rising, of course, led by Guinea, which is at way far ahead of the others, 183 million tons. And of course, we are not talking about the some of the other smaller producers of bauxite, even for that matter, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, where we are, or Sierra Leone, where we are, like in India, we are primarily processing all the bauxite into alumina, and then goes into the aluminum production. But the production seems to be pretty robust in line with the demand, and in terms of pricing, while I think we have not forecasted anything, but my personal view is that the bauxite prices will remain pretty steady. We don't see much movement there. The only risk which we see is the concentration on Guinea, because Guinea holds the world's largest high-grade bauxite deposit suitable for smelter grade alumina. And the two areas which of course concerns me is primarily is the distance from the from China and the other places where the bauxite is processed into alumina. And obviously, I think that in today's conflict, of course, it must be hurting the shipping and the consumers. And the other thing is the political stability, because we all know that Guinea went through a change in the regime. And even yesterday, I was reading in the newspaper, in the press, that the government has kind of dissolved 40 opposition parties. So I think political stability in Guinea is important if we are looking at stable bauxite supplies and prices. And of course, one good thing is that Guinea government has also been they have been firmly implementing some of the concession related clauses. So a number of uh, concession holders have started building their own refineries, like SPIC, Chalco, to name a few. And I think many more will be coming. Only challenge we have to see is the again the logistics and the energy availability in Guinea. Hopefully, they should be able to solve this because they are very close to Nigeria to, to get regular supplies of LNG from there. The next important player, of course, we are not taking everyone here, but we are just giving some example of Indonesia. We know that Indonesian government uh, 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 brought in the regulation whereby uh, all the bauxite export was restricted, and the mine owners were asked to put up the refineries. And actually, and as a result, we can see that in Indonesia is a place where we see a major investment happening in terms of uh, uh, not only in the bauxite mine development, but in alumina refinery and smelting capacity, because Indonesia also has abundant coal reserves and it is close to China. So primarily all the investment which is happening in Indonesia is happening from the Chinese investors, since China is holding on to their 45 million ton cap, and the market and Indonesia being very close to China, so it is much more uh, convenient for the Chinese investors to invest in Indonesia. And and here, my colleagues have also put some metrics in terms of the official price, actual market price, and production cost. So, in fact, when we look at the bauxite production and sales, there's not much of margins there. The margins are primarily coming from alumina refining and eventually in the aluminum smelting. Only thing we have to see that going forward, how the world uh, embraces itself in terms of the carbon neutrality when it comes to alumina and aluminum production. So that will be a challenge which is to be seen by countries like Indonesia, India, um, uh, to meet the market requirement. Since CBAM has already kicked in Europe, and we have to see the how the other markets embrace this. Talking about alumina, here is the graph where we see a continuous growth in the alumina uh, uh, supply and demand, but you must have seen that the alumina prices have been soft in 2025, and 2026 is likely to be like the same. And as we can see that major capacity addition in alumina is happening in Indonesia, China, India, Guinea, and Vietnam. Uh, and depending on the timing of the new smelting capacity which is being added, which I will come to in the later part of my presentation, uh, I can see that there is going to be a huge, a reasonably good surplus for alumina in the mid to long term. So we expect that alumina prices are likely to remain soft in foreseeable future. My colleagues have put in this graph because they have factored some of the inflationary cost-related uh, factors into the pricing. Um, uh, but I think a lot will depend on the new smelting capacity which gets added. And I think as we will see in the next slide, as we can see that almost about 10 to 12 million tons of primary aluminum smelting capacity is being planned outside China. But the alumina prices will largely depend on how fast these capacities will come on stream, and if there are any closures of the refining capacity which may happen, particularly in China, Australia, or even some refineries in India as well. Uh, on the primary aluminum side, uh, as we can see that there has been a steady increase in the production, and we believe this year the primary aluminum production will be at 74.5 million tons. Some of the new capacity is being added in Indonesia. Capacity is being restarted in Spain. Angola has added a small pot line, taking advantage of the low cost of hydroelectric power there. Vietnam is building the first primary smelter finally, and we would say the phase one to come into production this year. Balco has already started energizing its 435,000 ton expansion. So a few pots have already started. We expect within this year, this will be in full production. So all these capacities will come into play. Of course, there are some production cuts. As we know about Mozal, they are going into maintenance with a reduced production. We have heard about Catalum and Alba. So we all need to see uh, how fast the Middle East issue get resolved, how soon Mozal is able to resolve the issue with the energy with the Mozambique government. So a lot will depend on that. In terms of the pricing forecast, I mean, we are not speculating about the uh, what happens in the Middle East and conflict and how far that goes. But we feel that with the growth in the demand of aluminium, and as we will show that there is expected shortage of metal over the demand, we feel that the pricing should be averaging between uh, 3,400 to 3,600 for the next quarter. But rest will depend on how this conflict pans out. Um, Again, I'm coming back to this in terms of the new capacity which are planned. I mentioned to you almost about more than 10 million tons across the world is planned. This chart shows about some of the projects which are uh, on the drawing board. Some of them are under implementation, and some projects are also not mentioned here because they are being talked about, being thought but not announced. Here we are only talking about the projects uh, which are already officially announced. But there are more projects planned in India, Indonesia, Brazil, uh, which are not here uh, in this. And there's a very interesting project is by in India by AM Green and Mitsui. I think this will be the first aluminum smelter uh, which will be truly running on the man-made renewable power. It will be not on the hydroelectric power based on the nature's gift, but this will be a based on a renewable energy mix, and they are pretty confident about building this project in next 2 to 3 years. So here we have different scenarios in terms of the aluminum market balance and how the prices may look like. So I think the first one is severe. If in case of severe prolonged disruption, there could be a deficit of 1.2 to 1.3 million tons. Uh, and the second scenario deals with there is a prolonged but not so long this depreciation disruption. So we are looking at 900 to 950,000 ton deficit, and the base case short disruption, I think, which hopefully should be the case. We are looking at the price saying between 3,150 to 3,250 for the year. Uh, and uh, so, and of course, uh, there is another scenario which I feel is highly unlikely, which is uh, bringing the prices below $3,000. Um, I have already talked about the Mozal and Catalum and Alba. So uh, this is how the LME price movement has been. And as you can see that, of course, price has been pretty volatile, primarily due to the Middle East conflict. Uh, when we look at the premiums have been growing. Again, of course, we look at the US premium, that is primarily because of the duties which the US administration has imposed on the aluminum. Uh, and but all said and done, the premiums had been steadily on the upward, has a upward trend. Then the next most important part is energy, because obviously we all know that aluminum uh, is energy intensive, and today it is not only we are looking at energy, but we are also looking at clean energy. Of course, we see a lot of projects planned in particularly in Indonesia, Vietnam, India will be primarily on the coal-fired uh, power. But when there are projects and then there are expansion in Middle East or in Africa based on the gas. But we do see that there are, as I mentioned before, about the projects of AM Green, which will be totally on the green energy. Uh, we have seen the smelters in Middle East, decoupling their energy assets and then drawing, a mix of energy, including green energy from the grid. Uh, and also, as we have learned about the smelter in planned in Europe or in US, the European smelter will be purely based on the green energy, while I think the one in Oklahoma will have a mix of the energy. Only thing that we have to see that how far this affordable energy is available for primary aluminum smelting, because aluminium is very important for energy transition and also for the energy sector itself. But on the other hand, particularly when we look at the demand for the energy, which is one is because of the urbanization across the world. When we look at the developing economies, on the other hand, when we look at the developed economies, the demand for energy by the data centers. Uh, so the prices of energy is going to grow up, and it will be very interesting to see that how the balance it balances out, because we need both. We need data, we need aluminium. So we have to see how this will pan out going forward, because uh, in today's context, aluminium is probably competitive at $40 per megawatt, whereas as the slide says that the data centers are committing to energy at as high as $115 per megawatt hour. So now we come to aluminium downstream and end use, because obviously whatever we talk of the demand of bauxite, alumina, aluminium, eventually the aluminium needs to be consumed. And as we can see here that there is a consistent growth in the consumption. Only thing that for the last few years we have seen that uh, the extrusion has been overtaking the FRP. I remember 5, 6 years ago, it was FRP which was the leading consumer. But and then we also see all the other sectors, consuming sector continues to grow, whether we look at the castings, wire rod, um, and the other application, because there are a lot of newer applications which are happening. And mm, China, despite all the conflicting news we get about the Chinese economy, uh, continues to grow in terms of the aluminum consumption. And of course, now today, the Chinese government is also focusing heavily on internal consumption. And that is where we would see that China will continue to be the biggest consumer of aluminum. And but you will see that rest of the world, uh, aluminum consumption is also steadily growing. So that is good thing about aluminum. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that aluminum consumption outpaces the global GDP growth. Uh, we Here is a sectorial view that in terms of consumption, and we can see that uh, again, transport, building and construction, electrical, industrial, consumer durable, and other application, everywhere aluminum consumption continues to grow. Um, uh, this is about another example, which is primarily coming from the consumer industry, which is the foil. And uh, we can see here that the forecasted consumption for the aluminum foil, even by virtue of its application, is going to be high. And same goes for the country by country consumption. This is about FRP, which is without excluding foil. Here again, we see it is it continues to grow, and I do see that the transportation is I was expecting transportation will and consumer durables will have a much higher growth in the consumption. Maybe not this year, but next year, because of the changes which are happening. We expect that whatever we have read, that the automobiles, particularly EVs, will use, as against 150 kg, between 250 to 250 to 400 kgs of aluminium going forward. So that should really drive the consumption of aluminium in transport sector, primarily coming from castings, extrusions, and FRPs. This is about the consumption of castings. Again, I think this is primarily driven by the automobile sector. And when we look at the wire rod, in fact, uh, this is being driven by the electrical sector. And even the surprisingly, the demand is also growing in the developed economies, where there is a good transmission network is in place, because of the requirement of microgrids to support the renewable energy sector. In fact, I think that in many developed countries, because of the lack of transmission lines, a lot of renewable power projects have been put on hold or have been delayed because of the lack of availability of transmission network. So this sector is also going to see a robust growth here on. So this is about the Middle East geopolitical crisis we have already discussed. This is simply just to show you where are the Middle Eastern, smelters, refineries located. Where is we can see the Gulf Strait of Hormuz. So you can see that how vulnerable it is. Uh, we now come to towards the end of the presentation. Of course, we all know that one of the aluminium is 100% recyclable, but uh, but the but I mean, when you can see only a not so significant growth in terms of the aluminium recycling, because it is primarily driven by the packaging. And you have seen in the previous slides the demand for or the consumption of aluminium in terms of packaging. Unfortunately, when we look at the aluminium foil, a good part of the foil is not recycled. That's a reality. On the other hand, also the scrap collection efficiency in many countries is still very low, which needs to be improved. But recycled aluminium is the best source of green aluminium for us. But we need to work towards in terms of improving the scrap collection and its recycling. Uh, but as far as this year is concerned, we expect that the recycled aluminium demand will be about 31 million ton, which will, I think, which will be short of the demand which is required in terms of the. We will also see the tightening of the scrap supply. We foresee many countries also maybe restricting the scrap movements across the continents, because they would like their scrap to be recycled uh, in their own country or in their own region, as that is the best source of getting green aluminium. So, just to conclude that uh, the uh, the crisis in the Middle East has thrown up. I mean, I feel that this is only a temporary uncertainty, but also I think that this has shown the vulnerability, particularly when we are looking at refineries importing bauxite from a long distance. Um, we look at, long-term cleaner energy for the aluminum industry at the affordable price. All these things are very, very important in terms of the long-term sustainability of the aluminum industry. And I'm sure that the industry players will be mindful of the fact. Despite all this, I would say that aluminum, due to its versatility, is just not substituting steel, copper, and plastics, but by newer usage innovation. Uh, Due to this fact, aluminum consumption globally has been consistently growing and will continue to grow and hopefully will continue to surpass the GDP growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for walking us through the Aluminium 2026 outlook. So by this, we start the Q&A session. And I would also like to say that we will be sending this deck as well as the recording of today's session through to all the participants. You can raise your hand and ask the question, or you can put questions on the chat or the Q&A section.
So, Rupankar, we have a question from Mr. Bipin Shah. He would like to know about the price scenario of aluminum during the current geopolitical situation. If you or Ayan would like to take the question.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Shah. Uh, we think the price will be a bit volatile for the next quarter at least, and we are expecting in between uh, 3,200 to 3,300 or a bit high. So in our presentation only, we have also given some of the scenarios which Prerna will be sending you, so you can study from the scenarios how each scenarios can denote the prices or how it can denote the prices. So it is we have given a very logical scenarios presenting. Three scenarios are there, and we feel that it will be within that range.
Any other questions from any of the participants? Okay, we have another question.
Ayan, can you give it that?
So, Ivika, maybe I'll answer this one.
Okay.
Uh, in terms of the primary aluminum development in Northern Europe, Norway, Iceland in the future, we have not heard of, other than the smelter in Finland, architectural, we have not heard of any other new investment in the region by any other, investor. That is the only project we have seen in horizon. That will be 0.6 million ton, and I think they are still at the feasibility stage. There is an anonymous attendee asking, we would like to import aluminum scrap wire ingots. I think here I would suggest that you can get in touch with L Circle Biz team. They are doing the global trade facilitation for aluminum products, including scrap. They will be able to assist you. Any summary of
For this summary, I think it will be better if you can send us your email. We can give you this regulatory development that is happening in the Southeast Asia.
Uh, about the Australian bauxite, we have to see because Australia has a lot of regulations as well as the costs are rising in Australia. Uh, so as long as there is a lower cost bauxite from countries like Guinea uh, is available, we don't see much expansion in the Australian bauxite happening. As regards Canadian primary aluminum smelting, we know that RTA is moving production and they will be adding, I think, 0.25 or zero point 0.4 million tons in Canada, while they will shut down 0.25 million ton capacity where their power contracts is expiring. Yes, you're right. Albiz is a platform which connects buyers and sellers, but it does more. It can also facilitate the trade depending on your specific requirements. So it can give you a tailor-made solutions too.
So, if we are not having any more questions, so we can wrap it up. Or if Mr. Ruponkar wants to add something at the end.
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who has
Uh, I
here.
think there are some more questions which have come from Mr. Naren Shrivastava. What are the substitution risks from advanced steel composites? See, advanced composite, magnesium, etc., displacing aluminum demand in EVs, autos. So we take one by one. When we talk of advanced steel, steel is still three times more heavier. So the applications where aluminum is being used, I don't think that steel will be replacing aluminum. Composites are not recyclable. In a lot of places, they have been tried, but then again have been discarded. So composites are used in very specific application. Magnesium is a highly polluting and much smaller industry. So we don't see, I mean, today's pricing of magnesium is much lower because of the overproduction or demand requirement. But I think only where there is a high strength casting is required, probably magnesium will be used or magnesium will continue to be as an alloying element, but we don't see it substituting aluminum. Uh, there's somebody interested in investing in profitable growing companies in aluminum recycling in Southeast Asia. Sure, you please write to L Circle. L Circle isn't is has been following up a lot of companies, and they should be able to help you to connect you with potential investors, and then you can take your own call. Uh, can you tell if anorthosite can be a source of aluminum? I'm sorry, we have to ask our technical team. I am not familiar with this material. I am not competent to answer this. Uh, Very difficult to say about MJP. It can be anybody's guess. It all depends on uh, how this conflict pans out. In terms of production of 1050 grade, I think we will get back to you. Send us a mail. We will talk to our technical team and we will reach out to the expert and try to give you a solution. Okay, I think Prerna, you are on mute.
Okay, no, there's one more question.
Yes, definitely it will create a challenge, I think, because you can't build the aluminum capacity so fast, you know. So obviously, and we can see that how the price movement is happening, not only in oil and gas industry, but in the aluminum industry as well. So this definitely will have a major impact.
Mr. Xavier, he has raised his hand. If you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, you can do it, sir. I think we have answered all our questions. To all the participants, if you want to know anything more about the industry outlook, you can mail us. I will be circulating the deck and the recording soon. Mr. Ruponga, do you want to answer this?
What is this?
There is one from Alvin. Send us a mail. We will be able to help you in terms of scrap processing equipment. Okay, then. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, our team. So let us end the webinar here. Thank you so much.